Welcome to Threads of Enlightenment, a podcast devoted to helping you overcome challenges in your life that prevent you from becoming the best version of yourself. Each episode features interviews with people from all walks of life about their journey of self-development and the principles they utilize to overcome their fears to achieve their desired outcome. Ready to be enlightened? Here's your host, Ken Primus.
Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. Guys, you know me and my custom, my habit. It's a habit, I would say. And my habit is to welcome our guests because I know they're coming with a couple of things that deem very expensive and precious, man. Time. 24 hours has been offered to every one of us while we're here on this planet. How we utilize time and how we understand the value of time will tell me much about you. The other is the journey. The journey is a powerful created individual that is before us, and it is housed with the name Matt. And I want to honor him because I know he's coming, man, and spending these quality things with us. This thing with his journey has deposited a couple of things that we want access to from Matt. What are those things? Wisdom, insight, understanding, knowledge, all those things that are inside of him. We want access. Why? Because we want to become better human spirits while we're here on this planet. Matt, thank you so much, man, for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here with you today.
It's an honor, man. One of the first questions that I ask my guests as they come to spend time with us is this question that I love to throw at them. And the question is, because I mentioned to you earlier that we have, I believe there are two parts to our journey, if you will. The first is the introduction to self and then the other, the service. And my question to you, Matt, is how do you serve mankind?
How do I serve mankind? I serve mankind by sharing my journey and showing that I don't like the word messy, but showing that life is not linear. And right now, I really feel like I'm serving mankind. I'm sharing the journey that I'm going through as I'm going through a really big life change right now and just showing that this is all possible. And from an incredibly anxious warrior in my past life, past version of myself, I've learned to embrace life and to have faith and to just trust that things will work out. And I help other people with that and make changes in their life to support who they authentically are.
Yeah, one of the things, Matt, that when we're going to go in deeper into this thing, that one has to realize that when you are going to embark, if you will, on the personal development, and that's the terminology that we use, but I call it where we become better human of the better student of the self. As we become a better student of ourselves, we're walking into that realm of the spiritual. One of the main laws there is faith. Because it's not a realm that we are familiar with in the sense that we can touch and feel, but it is a place where it is real more so than this. And the only way we can access that is by our faith and coming to a place where we relax and allow and surrender, if you will, and things will happen once we get there. But the battle or the exchange is us trying to get it done and not realizing that there's a point where we have to let go. One of the customs that we have here, Matt, is we like to take that journey from the beginning of the beginnings, I call it. And the first space that we reside for a short period of time, and each one of these spaces we do reside there for a short period of time. And the first is a unit that is called the family. At this unit, we have a couple of heads of that family. We name them mom and dad. And some of us have siblings and so forth, but there's a group of strangers, if you will. Right here is where you and I are going to learn quite a few things. We're going to learn communication skills. We're going to learn how to deal with our emotions. We're going to learn habits and our modus operandi, if you will. All of these things right there. What was your family unit like?
My family unit was, growing up, our family was there was a lot of chaos. There was a lot of overwhelm. There was a lot of stress. There was love. My parents were very young when they had me and my two brothers, and resources were not abundant. That's for sure. And resources were very scarce. I think my parents did their best with what they had. And as I've understood their story more and more, they grew up with parents who were traumatized that did some version of their best, and their parents, my grandparents' parents, also left them quite traumatized too. And my story is one of a lot of generational trauma. I think each
Yeah.
generation did better than the prior, but like I'm the first one in my immediate family that went to college. I'm the first one that really desired to have something different. I mean, better in a lot of different ways than what I came from. And it wasn't necessarily more money. It was living in a city that I loved living in. It was enjoying food, it was enjoying travel. Um, it was experiences, and my parents couldn't provide for that, and it created a lot of problems. Not that I really expected them to, but like growing up, like it was a very, very, very clear that they were not going to be able to support us going to college. I kind of had a little bit of a challenge with that. Like, I mean, things were not like there was no money. It was more like
Yeah.
any dreams that you have are on you. We're not
Hmm.
supporting that. Like, when you turn 18, you're on your own completely. And I always accepted that. But like looking back on that, I mean, it was a bit harsh. I mean, it's
Yeah.
different if you don't have any resources, but they had some resources. And it was less about like the money and more about like what's wrong with you for not just being happy doing a job that doesn't fulfill you. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, you don't
Yeah.
have those options. And I'm the first one that really challenged that. I didn't really know what I was doing by challenging it, but I
Hmm.
just now I'm 41. So now looking back, like there's always been a purpose for me that I've been trying to figure out. And I've it's been painful to figure it out because there's been no support for it.
Yeah. I think there's always, Matt, one within the generational lineage that has an opportunity to change the trajectory of the family, of the bloodline, if you will. And that one, usually the maverick of the family, if you will, that one encounters some challenges because that individual is going against not just the immediate generational thing, the group, they're going against the ones behind that. And so there's this, intensity that is carried through, if you will, that that individual has to walk through and to stand up against. And yeah, I believe every family has one maverick, if you will, that will break the mold or has the opportunity to break the mold. Here you are in the midst of all of that interesting mix. How did Matt come out of that? What was he like? Because I believe, Matt, all of us within that description of your family within there, some trauma took place or usually several traumas. There might be small ones and it accumulates and whatever. But whatever, one things or that several trauma will happen that will make that little individual make some decisions there that will govern their life for the rest of their life until they become awake to begin their journey and then have to deal with that because they're going to have to come back and speak to it, if you will. What was your situation in your recollection as you are healing and looking back? What was it that incident that caused you to be traumatized as a young individual that caused you to make some decisions and locked in that guided you, that thread that walked with you through your life?
I think it was several different situations and things that had happened. So I'm gay. Like I never my experience being gay and coming out and living, I guess, a healthy gay life wasn't horrible. I
Hmm.
mean, I was comfortable to tell my friends I was gay probably around 19, 20 years old. And my family, I told much later, maybe around 25 or so. And, I just never dealt with it. Like I
Yeah,
never dealt with the fact that I mean, I say this like, I like at 18, 19 years old, 19, 20 years old, I got to talk about who I really was. But for the
yeah,
first 20 years of my life, I hid who I was. For the first 25 years of my life, I hid who I was from my family. And by that time, I was in, Like, I mean, I was in like, keeping busy mode. I was
Hmm.
in, so yeah, I mean, I came out and said I was gay, but it was like, I never dealt with it. I never
Yeah.
really acknowledged and stopped and thought, like, this is actually interesting just to hear myself say this right now. Like, I never really stopped because my life is in a place right now of really unfolding.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll get there, but it's just like, as I'm hearing myself say this, like, I never got to really know myself intimately. And it's just funny, like, as I'm going through this next change in life right now, like, I am like, am I an artist? Like, am I a creative person? I mean, I would have told you, I would have told you certainly 5 years ago, I mean, absolutely 10 years ago, that I don't have a creative bone in my body.
Yeah.
And here, like, I've been doing all this I've been achieving all of this business success. I've done really well in my corporate and career. I started a consulting business helping businesses with sales and marketing. And I made $1 million a year these past couple of years through my
Yeah.
consulting business. I don't say it to brag. I
Yeah.
say it just because it's part of my journey. And it's like, who was this person?
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
was this person that was just, and I wasn't chasing like Chanel bags and fancy cars and vacations. When I was younger, I liked material things a little bit. I
Yeah.
have a nice house and stuff, but
Yeah.
like, this wasn't about like, I need more. It was more about like, I'm really good at this and I'm getting paid fairly. And now it's like, if I'm really good at everything that I've done, why am I
Hmm.
not doing what I want to do?
Yeah.
I never knew how to ask myself that. I had no friends growing up, which was also very traumatic.
Yeah.
And I just always believed something was wrong with me. My dad, he grew up playing sports and he shared a little bit about, his childhood was extremely rough, extremely, extremely rough. And he said something like sports were what he found and it helped regulate him,
Hmm.
and he tried to get me to play sports. I have no interest in sports. I have no talent when it comes to sports, and I don't like competitive sports. I don't like getting up on a Saturday morning to play sports. I have no interest. I have no talent, and I was like forced to play sports for like probably 7, 8 years. That's a
Wow.
long time to be like
Yeah.
forced to do something that you have no interest in and no talent in. And I wasn't like punished for not doing well, but like it was a joke. I mean, it was like, how could you be so bad? And I
Yeah.
was like, because I'm not trying. I hate this. And I think it's important to kind of like hone in on this. I hated sports so much growing up. And now, like looking in my family, I'm by far the most athletic person. I didn't know that there was forms of exercise and athleticism that didn't involve competitive sports and throwing a
Yeah.
ball and like, I run, I hike, I play yoga, I go to the gym and do weight workouts. I work out pretty much like every day. I take a little bit of breaks here and there and have lighter
Yeah.
days, but who would have thought, like I thought I was like something was wrong with me because I didn't like what normal boys did.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, I had all these other talents and skills. Like I love cooking. I've always loved
Hmm.
cooking. I love reading. I
Yeah.
love writing. Like all of these things that were just suppressed because I thought something was wrong with me. And my parents didn't have the tools to help me bring those out of me. And
Yeah.
I was suppressing them because I just had so much shame for myself. And when it came down to it, I'm sure we'll get here in the interview, but I had a wake up call that happened later in life, and it really got me to investigate what was going on. And just beneath it all was just gobs of self hatred and shame.
Yeah, I mean, from what you just laid out before us, is here's this young man just basically hiding and in a form of survival mode and just doing what's necessary to make it from one day to another, and doing everything that he doesn't want anything to do, just being forced to do things and has to show up, if you will, and maintain his sanity within that framework. That's for most of your days and your beginnings, if you will. You're heading into high school, Matt. Talk to me about high school and as you're heading from high school now, you're gauging towards college. What was your mindset towards that? Because one of the things that from the trauma, it starts developing our communication skills with others, our behavior with others. First, how was your behavior with others, your communication skills with others? And then most importantly, because you mentioned shame and all that stuff, and I was one of the things I had to deal with me. What was your relationship with Matt?
I don't think I had much of a relationship with Matt at all. High school was interesting, and my life started to get good in a lot of measures. I was a very chubby kid.
Mhm.
fat by a lot of measures, and that really weighed on my self-esteem. And looking back on this, it's all very clear. I mean, I was eating because I was just so depressed and trying to eat my feelings away. And
Yeah.
then in high school, I started to make friends. In freshman year, I actually found show choir, and I started, like, I knew that I wasn't, from what I had learned through sports and growing up around so much masculine energy, I had
Mhm.
learned that that was not what I wanted for my life,
Yeah.
and that was not what was comfortable. So I went the opposite end and joined show choir,
Yeah.
and people were really nice. I met amazing friends. Again, I didn't have any talent in this. I mean, it's quite funny, like looking back. And one of my best friends that I'm still really close with today from show choir, she kind of, her and I kind of say the same thing. We were not like good at what we were doing, and we laugh about it. But like, yeah, so it was kind of another version of like I had checked the box of being around people who were kind and compassionate, but
Yeah.
again, like I was spending my time doing something that wasn't, that I wasn't good at. And
Mhm.
I mean, and I rebelled. I mean, I got in trouble. I was a very, I found humor at a funny age. I like the saying that sometimes all we can do is laugh. And so I found
Yeah.
humor, I became kind of a prankster, but it wasn't like horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't vicious things. It was just like I met friends that we could like make each other laugh at, really. And I'm laughing right now because like it was, I mean, as an adult, if I
Yeah.
saw some of the things we were doing at 16, 17 years old, they were funny. I mean,
Yeah.
but still got in trouble for that. And then after a couple of years of high school, I actually started to get really, I shouldn't say really skinny, but like, I started to look really good because I
Yeah.
started to feel at home. I started to, like I had friends that were teaching me how to, how to take care of myself. And, and I mean, in show choir, I mean, I was moving around for the first
Yeah.
time in a long time, more than I ever had before. And I think my metabolism and stuff had just changed. So I gained some confidence,
Mhm.
and like things were pretty good. I
Yeah.
mean, things were pretty good the last couple of years of high school. And I actually left, this was kind of like a big thing for me. Like I left show choir my senior year. I didn't like it. And like that was
Yeah.
probably the first like big decision I'd ever made in my life. And I had friends that were still in the group. The
Yeah.
teacher and I did not really get along very well. And he was like, he was everyone's favorite person. And he just wasn't very nice to me. I'm sure I did something that like rubbed him the wrong way too, or I don't know. But like it was really the first big decision like that I made for myself. And I was really proud of it. And I still am, like, that I followed my intuition for the first time ever. And then I went to college at a local UC school. UC schools are very good. I still kind of
Yeah.
like marvel at this. I can't believe I ended up at one of the top 100 schools in America. I have a lot of mixed feelings about college because I went to a UC Riverside. It's about 50 miles from Los Angeles. It's
Mhm.
really kind of a commuter school. Although
Yeah.
I lived in the dorms, a lot of people, I mean, it feels like 95% of people went home on the weekends. So I kind of did the same. I ended up getting a job at a hospital doing this insanely like hard job. I mean, even looking back at this now, this was like very, very, very difficult. I was a monitor technician watching cardiac monitors, and
Wow.
I transcribed doctors' orders. So I had to learn how to read doctors' handwriting at like 18 years old, and prescription dosing and how to
And you
order lab
figured that
tests.
out, Matt?
I
You
did. I mean, I remember 6 months, it was 6 months every day, every single day that I went to work having to, like, ask someone for help, like, all day long, "What does this say? What does that say?"
Yeah.
And then finally one day after 6 months, it started to click, and I'm like, "Oh, like, I know, I'm just like, Tylenol is 325 milligrams, so if, like, a 325 was squiggled and you couldn't read the rest of it, like, you would know that's Tylenol because you can
Yeah.
make out a T, and there's no other medication that's, like, prescribed like that that's 325 milligrams. So it's you kinda have to do, or, like, these lab tests, like, they order the same 4 tests all the time.
Yeah.
So,
All
like,
the
even though you
time.
can't
Mhm.
read that, you know that
Yeah.
it's, like, 100% of the time it's ordered. So I started to make some progress there. But I worked there for, all through college. I worked 24-hour shifts sometimes on
Yeah.
the weekends. They were, 8 to 12-hour scheduled shifts, but I would be able to work double time or, overtime and double time sometimes. So I would do that, and, it was great in a lot of ways because if I worked a 24-hour shift on a Friday night, although I could barely walk out of the hospital, that would be as much money as it would be I mean, it was more money than working 8 hour shifts because of all
Yeah.
the overtime.
Yeah.
So
You said
I was resourceful and did that. And but I
how
went to this.
how 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 um how old were you when you got there as far as, and how long did you stay? You said you stayed there for a couple of years. Um, because I was there in the hospital system. My sons were all there in the hospital system. And that's a brutal playground, if you will. You get
It
a
was
chance to hear some interesting conversation and see some good stuff as well. You said you enjoyed it, Matt. How were you developing as an individual there? Did you begin to get more, as you say, sure within yourself? What was Matt doing as he's moving through his life? Got through high school, he's in college, he got his job, his first gig, if you will, and he's enjoying it. How is Matt doing?
not great. I mean, like this job was, I mean, I missed out on a lot of my social life. I was
Hmm.
working on the weekends. My normal shift was like, normally it was like probably 70% of the time I would work Friday night from 3 p.m. until 7 a.m., go home and sleep for a few hours, and then go back and do that again. So that was probably what I did about like 3 out of 4 weekends. So, and I mean, it was oftentimes 4 out of 4 weekends. So I missed out on a lot of fun on the weekends. And so therefore, I had fun on weekdays at school. That was like
Yeah.
I was studying and, partying on weeknights. And the hospital, like, it was very, you said brutal. It was quite brutal. I mean, for a lot of reasons. It's a very union driven place. Like,
Hmm.
no one's doing anything that's not in their job description if they're unionized. And that's fine. I mean, it's just not what I'm used to. Like, I was, and so like I mean, I wasn't unionized. I wasn't unionized. I don't believe. So I, was always used to lending a helping hand, and it was just a very adult job. I mean, I
Yeah.
had to carry a body to the morgue one time with somebody. I mean, and I worked I'm in the emergency room for a while, and I remember like there were times when I cried because just the things that you
Yeah.
would see
You see
were
it.
so sad. I mean, I could cry right
Yeah.
now thinking about this. I mean, a lot of times I'm not particularly one that's sad when people who are very old pass away of more or less natural causes. My
Hmm.
grandparents have both died, and I mean, all three died, and they were like, no one, like, they were ready to go. But it is really sad when somebody young comes in with an
Yeah.
emergency, and you see that. I mean, I'm getting kind of teary right now just thinking about that. And yeah, like I never really got a chance to be a child.
Yeah. Yeah, Napoleon Hill says usually when one is in the state of trauma, one of the things that we do, one of the habits that we do is we get lost in work and we move from one just get lost in work. And I did that, Matt, for years when, that was just a safe space. That was my place that I can control. And I was good at what I do, and I didn't allow myself to think much about anything else. And so I was good until I tell people we live the life. It reminds me of the song Matt Bolero. We live a life of Bolero until those cymbals start crashing in, and then we have to deal with all of that. So talk to me when you switch into the corporate world that you love so well and shined, and while you were doing all of your accomplishment when you get there. Talk about that transition first, Matt, how you got there and some of the accolades that got there, and because this is where you began to shine and you began to do your thing, and the money began to show up and all the different things. But along with the money, there's this undercurrent of we need to talk. That young man back there is knocking on the door and saying, we need a conversation. There's some things we need to discuss. But it takes us, some of us, Matt, years to answer to make that appointment and go sit down and talk. So tell me when you make that transition, because I want to get to the place where you know some of the signs of when we're heading in that direction: burnout, the unsettledness, I mean, you had all those symptoms as just like a patient getting sick from a disease, had they have all these symptoms, and we don't deal with it until we boom, and then we rushing into the emergency room to deal with this to find out what's going on. Talk to me about when you make the transition, getting into your skill set as in the corporate America world, and then talk to us about how you shine there, and then about that undercurrent as you began to move, even though you were making all the money, all the accomplishment, and you're beginning to learn that that's not life.
My gosh, I'm kind of just like, it's been, I don't know that I've ever really like taken somebody through this whole journey like this. And it's a little emotional in a good, I mean, I'm comfortable with it, to be clear,
Yeah,
but it's just like how misaligned this all was. I didn't hate the hospital thing, and
yeah,
I mean, I didn't like a lot of it, but I kind of like moved on to corporate corporate world because that's what we're supposed to do when we graduate college. And I remember the first job I took a job that, and I think it's interesting I say took, I took I would take whatever would hire me. There was no discernment process here. I knew, there were certain things that I wasn't really qualified for, like finance. Like I didn't really thrive in finance during college. I went to school for business administration and had exposure to all the areas of business. So accounting, finance, I think it was IT, marketing, and operations. I think it was. There was something like finance was the one that I was like, this is not for me. But so I applied for this job. I can't even tell you what it was, honestly. And I got the job. I went there for a day and a half and I quit. I was like, I can't do this. And the guy was so mad at me. And I'm like, don't even pay me. And he didn't pay me. So that was my first job. It was like some sort of business job. And then I eventually wound up in metal sales. So working for a metal distribution company. So I sold copper, brass, aluminum, steel, stainless steel. I'm probably leaving some stuff out. There's tons of specialty metals, but really for manufacturing, machining, construction, you don't realize how much metal is around you. There's just to give you context, there's like probably 50 places that could deliver steel next day to me right now in LA. Like it's all competitive pricing and the people, the buyers are calling around and getting quotes and looking, they need this now. So even if somebody's it cheaper, they need it now. And I'm negotiating all of this with sales and margin goals, so profitability goals. And I did this. I worked for 2 different companies for I guess 5-6 years I did this. Everyone was like, okay, it was a legitimate job, it was, people weren't like, my coworkers were actually all really, really nice, except for a couple of just normal office people. I'm just kind of going through this in my mind. But, it was a very low paying job. I mean, I don't mind giving context. I'm pretty transparent. But when I finished in 2008, I was making probably like $70,000 a year. I had friends making twice that working for industries that were just higher paying. But it was enough to pay the bills. And, I had an apartment and stuff. And I did very well. Looking back at this job, it was 100% negotiations all day long. And I don't even remember how many accounts I managed, probably like something like 300 or 400. And I'm still close to kind of 2 of the managers that I had. And they still sing my praises. And they're like, Matt, you were like the best person I've ever hired. And I was very good at my job. And that was kind of part of the problem. Like a lot of people that had worked there were people that were my parents' age and they were making probably twice what I was. And here I was coming in and I didn't necessarily expect to make what they were, but I was doing more productivity than a lot of them were. And it was like, this didn't make sense. And then in 2000, I hid my sexuality for sure. I didn't tell anybody. I had a customer once call my boss and say that I don't want Matt to come back here. I don't want that gay salesman to come back here. And I just remember accepting that. I cried. I remember pulling over and crying, but it was like, that was just life. And then in 2008, the recession hit, metal sales more than most industries. And I knew I had to do something about it. And I'd always wanted to move to New York. After college, I bought a one-way ticket to move to New York. And I never went. I literally gave it my all. I tried anything. I asked anybody I could. And I applied for 100 jobs, maybe more, and just nothing. And so then in 2010, I decided to move and my life started over. And I reached out again to everybody and anybody who I knew. One of the contacts actually worked out. He helped me get a job at his company, which was for a startup baby product company. And I got hired. If you're listening only, I kind of went from sort of I'm kind of holding back tears about this, and then I'm smiling now about this baby product sales job because it was I worked for this startup company in Dumbo in New York, which was like this up and coming area, and like I don't know if half of them, but it felt like half the employees were gay. Everyone was gay friendly. Drinks nonstop, celebrating. The company was growing like a weed. The owner was a terrific Australian woman who had moved to New York, and she was looking for a product that she grew up with and couldn't find it in America, and realized there was a huge opportunity. So the company ended up growing to be $100 million company. And she hated corporate life. So she made the company like very fun. I mean, it was a
Yeah.
very anti-corporate. And I moved up to a couple of other baby product companies in New York. This was a very booming industry back in the, 2010s, because before that, it just hadn't really been innovated. Like,
Mhm.
rich people, even in New York, live in small apartments, and
Yes.
they
Yeah.
realized there was an opportunity to like make better designed baby products, not some
Yeah.
Winnie the Pooh diaper bag sitting out in the middle of your, nicely designed apartment, and make some
Yeah.
more well designed products. And I did that for about 5 years. And I worked at a company that I loved. Like, I have never loved a boss the way that I loved this situation. And I left it because I knew it wasn't right. Like, I mean, I wanted to do something else. And
Mhm.
I went to go work for a Silicon Valley software startup company. And when I interviewed with this guy, I was like, "Oh my god, this is the next Facebook!" And I went to go work in business development for them. And I'm so grateful. I mean, I learned an entirely new set of skills that I didn't
Yeah.
have. And I worked there for a year and was laid off. The company went under because of financial challenges. It was not a huge surprise. I mean, the writing was kind of on the wall, and
Yeah.
I wasn't really happy there. I made a lot of money. I mean, by this time, I was making like $250,000 a year, and which is a lot, but in New York,
Yeah.
it's not crazy. But
And
I'd
how are you
really
doing, Matt? How are you
what
doing? I mean, money. I tell people this: the soul or the subconscious mind is not interested in money.
I
Conscious
wanted
mind is
safety.
interested in money.
Yeah,
The
the money was
subconscious mind is
safety.
not interested in money. That's not the currency that he is interested in. He's
Mhm.
interested in deeper things. As you are, your conscious mind is making all the money and you're doing good. I mean, you're doing okay. When anyone looking into your world from the outside, they're looking into Matt's place and they're saying, man, he's doing all right. Matt, inside you, because you've been hiding for years.
Mhm.
Man, you've been hiding for years. How are you doing, man?
Not good. I mean, I don't know how I'm doing. Like, I'm not, I mean, I don't know myself. Like, I mean, I'm just like, I'm anxious. I'm anxious. I'm drinking a lot, but not that much more than most 28-year-old New Yorkers or 30-year-old
Yeah,
New Yorkers who have money.
yeah, yeah,
So, I had doctors for years tell me that like the alcohol was not helping anxiety. And I didn't, I guess, reject that. I just didn't know what to do with it. But looking back at those times, I was very anxious because I was drinking and just not taking very good care of myself. I was doing I was doing everything right. I was going to the gym. I
hmm,
was making the money. I was doing all of those things, but I wasn't taking care of myself. And I was completely out of alignment, and I didn't even know what alignment was. I was
yeah,
in therapy, and God, I wish I knew what we talked about. Like, I remember a few snippets, but like, I mean, I'd been in therapy most of the time I was living in New York, but I don't really have memories of what I was talking about with them. I do know that the gist of it was sort of getting to the root. They were trying to get to the root of what this was all about and what was going
yeah,
on. And there was things about childhood that I was rejecting, because it's really hard to go back
hmm.
and assign blame to your caretakers when they love you and did their best. But how was I doing? I wasn't good. And
And
but I
talk.
was young, and I was resilient.
Yeah, we were partying, man. At that age, I was, in New York. I mean, I'm older than you, and I remember the drinks back in there is $20 and stuff like that. You sit down in a bar and you're spending hundreds of dollars before
Mhm.
you're only there for 20, 30 minutes. And if you have a couple of friends with you, so
Mhm.
um,
You know how
that's
it
the
is.
life that you live.
You're taking
And it's
your
just, you do that every day,
you're taking your black
you know?
car, you're taking your, like you're living, like you're kind of, I'm not saying this is all of New York. I think this is like, this was me, I
Yeah,
mean, and I think New York, like, I mean, it always felt like the adult playground. I've gone to Vegas a million times because I lived in California, and New
yeah,
York always felt like Vegas to me, like much more classy and much more,
I think so.
yeah,
Classy. We can
but
party
yeah,
as hard as Vegas, but we do it more classy. We were able to
yeah.
represent ourselves much better, if you will, than how they did it in Vegas. So, talk to me, Matt, about that day when, as I said, that symbol crashes. It comes into our life, and just like any other day, we wake up, and here it is, and it spirals and begins to introduce us to a new world, a new
Mhm.
beginning, a new trajectory, if you will, and the whole purpose of that is to now to create a new Matt, to introduce Matt to the fact that he can become a creator and begin to change what is happening to him. Talk to us about that, Matt, and that day. So as you woke up in the morning and you're ready to start your day, and then all your life changes.
Well, I don't know. There was one day only. Like there was one big day, but before that, there was a couple of events.
There's always a couple.
It's like the depression. I mean, I was feeling depressed and worried and anxious, and just it became unmanageable. And I went to the
Yeah.
doctor. She found out that I had high blood pressure. Not a huge surprise. I was smoking probably a pack of cigarettes every day and drinking a lot, and started me on Lexapro. That made things so much worse. And I just want to caveat this: like when you're taking a medication like this, like you have to try a few before you figure out the right one, and it takes a while for them to like kick in. So I mean, it was kind of traumatizing for me. And I stayed on it, I think, for about 6 weeks. And you need to let your doctor know when you're like, you can't just stop taking it. So like I had worked with her on that, and she said it was finally time to stop taking it. And I was honestly traumatized. I think it wasn't like the worst thing ever, but like it didn't make me feel better at all. And I was too traumatized to try something new. And in the process, over these few months, my partner and I decided to move to LA from New York. And that was like, I loved living in New York. I think like in hindsight, I loved living there because it was far away from my problems. And I thought that my problems were gone. And I knew that I knew deep down moving back to LA where I'm from was going to bring up family things. There was family dissatisfaction that I'd have to deal with. So I didn't have that insight at the time, but and I had just started a consulting business. I was laid off from that software job, so I plunged headfirst into this consulting gig, helping baby product companies with their sales and marketing. And I had no business starting a business, as I say, because I couldn't set boundaries. I had no ability to value myself appropriately. I didn't say no to anything. I just did what needed to be done and just was chasing money. And all of it, I mean, I was on planes several times a week and just out with clients and just never been busier in my life. And then so on a Saturday afternoon or Saturday morning rather, David and I, we hopped on our plane to move to LA, our one-way trip. And we were in LA in West Hollywood. We landed and we were in our West Hollywood apartment unpacking. And all of a sudden I mean, I was short of breath and my chest was hurting, and I started to feel really dizzy. So I sat down and checked my blood pressure, and it was 190 over 110 or 115, and that's very 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 high. And so I called my doctor, and it wasn't going down. So she told me to go to the emergency room, and I was checked into the hospital. My first night in LA, thinking that the doctors thought I might have had a heart attack. The next day I was discharged. There was no heart attack, and I had to start dealing with this all. And it was a 2-year process to figure out really what was really beneath it all. But that was the day that my life had become unmanageable, I would say.
As you brought team members in, because we do have to bring team members because we don't have the answers. We make a couple of decisions, Matt. We'll say, okay, this is enough. And we will make a decision. That decision will propel us to bring our team members. It'll also send us on a path to gather data where we're going to be studying, we're going to read, we want to find out things. And we start this process of finding out, learning what is the root cause in corporate America, which you're from, I'm from there. We have to learn, we have to set on the path to develop, find out the root cause of our situation, and then put together root cause analysis, as they say, to deal with that. As you began to walk through that and put your team together, get your data, what did you start to notice what trauma did you discover, and what tools did you bring into your life to help you out with passing through them?
I realized just how much pain was inside me. I don't know if this was the tool that you'd be thinking of, but vulnerability. I really had to embrace vulnerability and just like really open up about what was happening. And I surrounded myself by a group of coaches and healers, doctors, therapists. I had to sort of weed out the ones who were not compassionate to find ones that were compassionate enough to be able to support me and allow me to open up about the things that I needed to open up about and get help. And that led on that led me on a process of what I call a deep introspection. And a lot of it was through journaling. As I work with clients now, it's interesting. I hate to prescribe people like you have to do yoga or you're not going to be okay. You don't have to do yoga, I think, to
No,
be
you don't
okay.
have to.
But I think journaling is really important.
Yeah.
And journaling could take any form. You could type it, write it. You could write it and tear it up after or something. But it's just about getting to know yourself. And that was, I mean, I have huge stacks of journals that I actually it's on my list to go to kind of peruse through this weekend and kind of revisit some of that. But I gained so much clarity about me and what I was going through, what I was feeling through letting pen take the paper and journaling. I have plenty of typed documents as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, I had to really get honest with myself
Hmm.
about like just what I was feeling. And it was a process. You know, I think that like I never found anybody who was quite like me, the sensitive, compassionate man who had been
Yeah.
hiding his whole life. You know, I mean, so if I would have found someone like that, it probably would have sped the process up a little bit. But
Yeah.
I didn't, and so I worked with what I had, and I surrounded myself with a whole bunch of different people that all brought something new to my life and helped me learn what they've learned and helped me find freedom. Yoga was a big part of it. I think yoga was, I remember I was talking about this the other day, and it's like, I remember in the early stages of yoga, it was like just the goal was to get the chaos in my mind into my other limbs of my body, like to
Yeah.
just disperse the worry and the anxiety. And that helped. Movement helped, diet,
Hmm.
exercise, all of
All
the things
tools.
that this all
Those
I mean, it's a
tools.
lifestyle change, you know. I
Yeah.
mean, there's no quick fix, you know. I mean, I think that the quickest fix or the biggest relief that I had was from being honest with myself about
Yeah.
what was going on and becoming acquainted with myself. But like the rest of it was lifestyle changes and
Yeah. The
not
quickest
crazy
fix.
ones either, you know.
Yeah.
Moving's good. Drinking a lot of water is
Yeah.
good. Like
The
eating
quickest fix,
vegetables, not
yeah, the
smoking
quickest
cigarettes.
fix, Matt, that I know of is changing your perspective, but that takes so long. It takes a long time to do that. And that's the quickest fix because once you change your perspective, everything begins to change. And Matt talked, guys that are listening to us, Matt brought in some really powerful stuff. And he talked about a couple of things, couple of spaces that you must visit. Vulnerability, you cannot get healed unless you are vulnerable. You cannot heal unless you are honest. There's no way you're going to heal if you're going to be lying to yourself. How in the world is that possible? How in the world are you going to heal if you're not going to be vulnerable and able to allow yourself the space to engage within the raw, authentic you? There's no way. And you need tools to help you. Matt mentioned a bunch of them. Journaling is one of the most powerful out there. Yoga is another. Movement is another. All of these things are tools to bring into your world. Meditation is another. There's so many that is out there for you to gain and utilize. Try them and see what fits in your being and then work with it because that's what's comfortable to you. And what's comfortable to you, why are you trying to do that? Because you're going to have to be consistent. And that is the key once you become consistent. But if you are going to, you need to find what is comfortable in you and through you and with you so that you can become consistent and it's not a burden on you. And because this is what you need in order to walk through. So as you begin to deal with all of this, Matt, and you began to see, because we always go through, and then we see some things that we can add and change and create a new process, if you will, a new way by which you do certain things, because we gave some insight. As you're going through yours and you're healing and you have your team and stuff like that, talk to me as you beginning to see your process because you are your first client and you're using this process on you. So how are you seeing it? And as you're seeing it, how are you putting it to formulate together so that you can reach back and guide someone with that same process that you use to get your freedom, if you will?
Yeah, I would say that there's probably three different I'm just kind of processing the way you asked that question. There's like three different pillars that I would say in this, the way that you describe that. It's getting clear on where you're at what's going on, what
Hmm.
like the mental part of this, like what is really the dissatisfaction, and then finding a way to ease the mental dissatisfaction through therapy, through meditation, through journaling, just a way to calm the mind. And then living in alignment, like learning how to live in alignment. And I think that I think it's so I think it's been my life's work to realize and learn what alignment is like, and that
Yeah.
we like I'm in this transition right now that's very interesting, and it's like, and I have the gift of faith and financial cushion and
Hmm.
just experience in this, and like it's crazy to like be like, this does not feel good, like, and be like, holy crap, like, I am like, I've spent my whole life pushing myself in directions that don't feel good. And the sooner we learn how to trust our intuition, the better our life becomes. So like, but we need to get kind of clear on like where we're at. When you don't have to have all the answers, but it's like what's holding, like just what's there? Like what
Hmm.
is there? Like
Yeah.
just divulge what's going on. And then the mind, I mean, we need to calm the mind. And I think that I haven't used medication. I've self-medicated, but
Yeah.
like I think that a lot of us, this is the challenge, and there's a lot of different ways to do that. There's the holistic paths of meditation, yoga,
Yeah.
journaling, writing, all of those things, and going for walks. And then there's, medications. And then there's also, I mean, I think a lot of it is like diet and exercise, or diet
Hmm.
particularly,
Yep.
I mean, I know now, I mean, at 41, I don't know if I'm just like more aware of it now, or if this is really what happens as we get older, but like I can feel, and I think I'm just more, I can feel my body more, but like if I have dessert, like the next day is a little different. It's not
Yeah.
intolerable, but like, yeah, like I have anxiety in a way that I don't really have. Maybe it's not anxiety, but I have my mind isn't as like
Yeah.
peaceful as it is
Your
without sugar.
system has been disturbed. There's been, as they say, there's a disturbance in the force, and it's not. Um, I was talking to someone about alcohol and all the different things. I just don't like the day after. I don't like what it does to my body. I'm a little older. When I was younger, I would be drinking, partying, and if I'm at a friend's house, I'll take a shower, and I usually have a set of clothes in my car anyway because I knew I was partying that bad. I'd go to one of my friend's house, take a shower, and my clothes is in the car, and get dressed and go to work. I just came from partying, and so I can't even think about doing that because the minute I have that thought in my mind, my physical body is so exhausted. I need a nap, because I'm at an age where that is totally something. But I'm a little wiser. There's no need for me to do that to my body. I don't need to do it. And so why should I do that? And then that takes time. But Matt is talking about you have to pay attention. And one of the keys of walking the journey, we call it mindfulness. I call it living in the present. You, as Matt talked about, you have that sweet, that sugar or whatever, that dessert. And when you're in the present, you feel your body, the disturbance as you feel it, man. And it's amazing. And even in emotional situations, you feel it in your body. Sometimes, Matt, I know there's a disturbance before things happen, and I put myself in an intense awareness because we are energetic beings, and I know that there's an energetic disturbance that is on the way, if you will. And I need to be very attentive to when it presents. And all of these things is a part of the journey as we walk through life. We learn other things and we begin to practice it as we go through life. And you guys are listening to Matt and I talk about this, and you're wondering about some of the things. We're going to give you access to Matt. We're going to provide all of his links and stuff like that. He has a couple of programs. He has a podcast, all of these things. We're going to provide all that stuff. His skill set also deals with finances and other things. There's tons of stuff. This guy is a storehouse of wisdom for what I would call for your living and survival of you as you're balancing life. He can assist you with the financial piece. He can assist you with the spiritual growth. He can assist you with a couple other things. So you need to get to him. You may look at him and you think he's young, but that's the household's wisdom. He has gone through much. He has been tested and he has been escorted on the other side. He knows what he's talking about. And many of you that are struggling financially, he can assist you and give you some insights. Many of you that are struggling in dark places, anxiety, all of these things, depression, he can assist you. Many of us were there and many of you are there, and Matt have been there. He talks about the disturbance that is currently in because stagnation is never acceptable and when one becomes awake. And so why? Because what's happening in Matt? He's about to be stretched. And every time we feel that disturbance, there will be a story about it. And Matt, you're going to come back and we're going to talk about that story because every time there is a disturbance and the fact that 2025 is here, Matt, I believe it's going to escalate. It's going to run, man. And many of us in a short time will have a series of story because I believe this is but showtime. I think a lot of people are going to be in pain and people like yourself with your wisdom and your knowledge and your insight, we're going to need you a little more and to assist us and walk us through the coming years, months and years while we're here. Matt, I want to ask you one thing before we go. Talk to them about your podcast because I was looking at it and your vision behind that. Talk to them as to what to expect because I want you guys to get in and listen to him and give him, Matt, go ahead and give them the information so that they can all get ready and start logging into that thing right away.
Thank you. Thank you for the nice words. Yeah, it's been an interesting life, and I'm not that young. I'm 41. I might look a little
Yeah, you're
younger than
young,
I am.
man. I'm 63. You're young.
I've been working for 26 years, I guess now. I worked before the hospital stuff too. So, but yeah. So you can find me at mattgerlach.com. I have a free gift. It's a workbook that really distills everything that I've learned into a workbook that will get you started in sort of identifying like what you want to change in your life and what you want your life to look like. That could be found at risetoyourworth.com or it's at the top of my website, mattgerlach.com. The podcast is me expressing what I'm learning and what I've learned in life. And um, you know, and what I'm continuing to learn for 2025, there's a different vision that's coming through. So there's going to be a little bit of a change in that I'm going to be expressing myself a little bit differently, not just about like what I'm learning, but what I'm building and what I'm doing with my life and interviewing other people who have figured out how to have really fulfilling lives as well. So I'm kind of going to be transitioning a bit from just me sharing my lessons to me interviewing people that I want to learn from. I think that it's important for anybody. This is kind of this is kind of my lesson to share.
Yeah.
When you're making a change in your life, like me starting a podcast, me leaving my corporate career to go out and do something that's a lot more meaningful, helping others. I love cooking. That's a big part of my life now. There's an element of like, we just need to get going. We aren't going to be good at something at the beginning. And I really try to show that. I'm trying to show my life as an example of like, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have everything figured out. The road continues to appear for us as we go down it. But if we're too afraid to even try going down it, nothing wrong with fear. I mean, we all have fear. We need to work through it. But if we let fear hold us back from going down that road that we're called down, we're never going to get a chance to live our authentic life.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Again, Matt, thank you so much for coming, man. And again, guys, we are going to provide everything, all the links Matt talked about, so you can get access to him because it's necessary for you to change the trajectory of your life. We want you guys to live a fulfilled life. This is what it's all about. And we need data. You need information. You need mentor. You need folks that have gone through and know all the potholes where they're located, so that you don't have to go through that and get your car or yourself damaged in that pothole. Matt knows where those things. He has a map actually because he went through that little place. And so he can save you some money, save you some time, get you to your destination safe and quick. Matt, thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for tuning in to Threads of Enlightenment with Ken Primus. Hopefully you're now feeling more empowered to overcome the challenges in your life, whatever they may be. Share that inspiration with others by telling them about this podcast, rating it, and of course, remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. For more connection, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Threads of Enlightenment. Until next time, stay enlightened.